Meantime, let's move to the neighbour Kenya, looking at how the markets on that front have performed, up for the day by 0.4%, so ending the week on a positive note today. And certainly housing finances results impressed the market, that stock rallying on the day by 7.2%. And we saw some foreigners offloading their stake in the likes of equity banks, so some selling on that front, and KCB also selling at lower levels on the day. So some pressure coming through for some of those two blue chip banks, but overall you're looking at the market, which managed to close up by 0.4%. Looking at the currency, how it's faring against the dollar, 83.8, and stable as it stands this hour against the US dollar. Well, crossing over to Nairobi now, we've got our market watcher there, Muammar Ismaily, the head of research at Genghis Capital, who's standing by to give us his take on today's movements. Muammar, thanks for joining us today. So looking at housing finance, as I said, a 7.2% gain. That's off the back of quarter one figures that were released yesterday. So a 20% increase in net advances and loans. You saw 40% increase pretty much in overall quarter one earnings. So what took the market by such surprise? Was everyone not expecting such a strong gain for the start of the year?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen housing finance. We had expected it to increase after the positive results earnings. And I think a lot of those movements are based on what's happening with the political situation right now. I think housing finance is heavily involved in government-related housing solutions, and we expect them to get more involved in each and every county as they go forward. The other stocks to look at right now would be Kenya Re, who are involved in the insurance sector, and a couple of mid-tier banks who will be releasing their results over the coming weeks. So those are stocks that we expect to see. As far as the NSE goes, we saw it gain some points today, I think around 20 points. And I think that was as a result of the cabinet announcements yesterday. We've seen a more youthful, a more ethnically diverse set of individuals who've proven themselves both academically and professionally. And it's a break from the past that people were hired based on their political backgrounds and connections. So positive sentiments there are coming from the market.
That's certainly, as you say, a step forward. Turning our attention to the insurance space, we saw Kenya Re's results coming through earlier this week, and the stock the biggest loser on the day today. Overall, you know, you have seen, I suppose, some profit taking, some are saying, because those certainly weren't bad results. Jubilee is the next insurer also to report next week. Do you see any kind of spillover in terms of the type of activity we've seen on the insurance sector into next week?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think they share the same fundamentals, they share the same market. And we know that the gross written premiums for almost all the insurance companies had increased for that year, especially in preparation for the violence that some people had prepared for during the election period. We also know that the insurance companies are very aggressively diversifying their portfolios into equities, properties, and other sectors where they believe the asset quality has improved. So the same activity we've seen on Kenya Re should be reflected on a couple of other counters in the insurance sector.
But of course, if you look at Kenya Re as a reinsurance player, it's also got specific dynamics that's playing out on that front. I suppose the risk is slightly different. What are your thoughts on getting exposure to someone in the reinsurance space relative to traditional insurance players who target more corporates and retail sectors?
Well, I mean, one thing that stands out with Kenya Re is their regional, let's say, or sub-Saharan footprint. They have been actively involved in other parts of the country. So that would be one diversifying factor. I mean, and then the other is they're sitting on a larger amount of premium. So I think just going forward, I mean, they're all in the same market, so they all should benefit the same way.
Looking at East African Cables, one of the stocks that have announced big investment plans, 1 billion shilling investment plans announced yesterday. This is a company that certainly had a fantastic year in 2012, 66% growth in earnings. Just kind of run through the investment case for them right now as you see it. Of course, looking to put more capital into expansion and certainly off the back of solid earnings. But do you think that they can continue to deliver this kind of quantum of growth?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as governments in the region start to develop a lot in infrastructural development, especially in the utility sector, we'll see them sort of expand and rehabilitate their regional power distribution networks. And this will mean a lot more business for companies like East African Cables. I think just a wider outlook. For example, in Kenya, we know that there'll be more involvement in each and every county. For the region, we've seen more infrastructure involvement in Tanzania and Uganda, places like South Sudan that have been basically untapped. Mm-hmm. So we definitely see a positive future for a country like East African Cables.
But, you know, stock-wise right now, is that priced in? Do you see the stock heading further? It's up 44% so far this year. It's trading at almost 189 shillings as it stands today.
I think on the upside, I don't think it will. It should stabilize somewhere. I mean, we've seen the markets on a downward trend, you know, despite the reversal today. But it should stabilize somewhere above its current level.
Mm-hmm. So what are you expecting for next week, Muammar? Because we have seen the markets, you know, welcome recovery today, but overall it hasn't been a great week for the markets. Everyone's saying a welcome breather from the strong rally that we've seen this year. What are your expectations next week? Some of the companies specifically to look out for on the earnings front?
Well, now that all the political hurdles that were set in place before and after the elections have sort of concluded, we expect the markets to somehow stabilize and end the downward trend. So the markets should now, especially the large cap counters, like the Taiwan banks that I had mentioned earlier, should start to stabilize. We've seen a lot of shedding on counters like KCB and Equity. So those, because they have good fundamentals, should somehow settle. For example, KCB, we expect to sort of settle at around 38 shillings, and KCB somewhere between 30 and 32 shillings. So going forward, the market, I mean, the prominent feature next week should be some stability, moving away from the volatility that we have seen over the last few days.
Thank you for joining us today. Appreciate your time.